Audience, welcome to Viewpoint from Overseas. This is your host, Misbah Azam. With me is Mr. Riaz Haq and on Skype, Ali Hassan Samantur. Today we are going to discuss, first of all, about Mr. Javed Ahmad Ghamidi's recent visit to Bay Area, San Francisco. We have a one-on-one meeting with him, and Ali Hassan Samantur interviewed him. We will get some more input from our team. Then we will talk about Secretary of State Tillerson's visit to Middle East and Afghanistan, Pakistan, and then India. And in the end, we will spend a couple of minutes on the Washington dysfunctionality. So let's start with our first topic. So, Riyadh.
So he basically was, he's probably the most progressive Islamic scholar around today. If not the most, maybe one of the most progressive scholars. You know, that was obvious from the positions he took on a range of issues, from what is Islamic State to blasphemy laws to sectarianism and whether or not the state can declare anyone an infidel or a kafir, whether it's state's business to decide whether somebody has a certain religion or not. So he has some of the most progressive positions I have seen. What I found interesting was that after the interview that we have published already under Azad Labo Ke Saath ALKS, that he was interviewed by our Ali Hassan Samantur. After that interview, I asked him a question about Hadith. Mm-hmm. The reason I asked him about that was because if you look at the radical extremist, violent extremist organizations such as Al-Qaeda or Daesh or Taliban, they tend to use a Hadith very often to justify their violence. And his view on Hadith is that Hadith is basically a historical record, and as a historical record, it is subject to constant investigation and research. Mm-hmm. No such thing as a final word there. Mm-hmm. And this is a position that a lot of Pakistanis have a problem with, that they actually call him fitna. They think he's inventing a new religion. Because there's a belief among a lot of the more, conservative Muslims that the collections of Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari are absolutely, totally reliable, and there's no question about them. He takes a different position. Now, I know that he is himself not a trained Muhaddis, but he was...
what is Muhaddis?
Muhaddis means somebody who is a specialist in Hadith, in the study of Hadith. It's a very specialty area.
I see.
Because there's thousands of them, somebody has to sift through them to see, where they came from, who narrated them, what was the chain, and whether or not, these are reliable. One of the things his mentor and teacher, his name was Amin Hassan Islahi. Amin Hassan Islahi was a madrasa graduate. He actually studied at Deoband, and then he taught at a madrasa called Madrasa Islah in Azamgarh, India, before he joined Maulana Maududi in founding Jamaat Islami. And he was his mentor and teacher. He was a muhaddis, and I looked at some of the material he has produced, and he has talked about there are basically two broad classifications of hadith. One is what he calls khabar mutawatir, and the other he calls khabar wahid. Khabar mutawatir is a hadith which has continuity, which is something that more than one people have narrated. In fact, multiple people heard Prophet Muhammad say something, and they narrated it and reported that. The other kind is called hadith is called khabar wahid, where there's only one narrator, and then it's not been reported by other people. So a lot of the thousands of hadiths actually are in the category of khabar wahid, where only one person narrated that. And the biggest narrator, the one who has narrated the most hadith, is a person by the name of Abu Huraira. Abu Huraira was as a young man, spent a couple of years with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it is a lot of people find it incredulous that he has narrated more hadith, more than 5,000, more than anyone else who was closer to the Prophet, who spent a lot more time with the Prophet, including Prophet Muhammad's wives. So I think there's some questions about it that requires further investigation. Now, the good thing about it is that, Ghamidi Sahib is not alone anymore in this. There are others who are questioning it. Recently, the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Mahathir Mohamad, has been questioning, whether or not all the hadith are reliable and should we give them the same weight equal to that of the Quran and the other thing is in Islam as far as our faith is concerned. And then just this week, the Saudi monarch, the Saudi crown prince, has announced that they're setting up a council of ulama, of people, of the Islamic scholars, to vet all the hadith, because this has become a source of great concern with the hadith being used to justify violence.
I see. Samandur, you are the one who was sitting down next to Mr. Ghamidi and interviewed him virtually one-on-one. How you see all this thing overall?
So, Misbah, I was, just wondering why Javed Ahmad Ghamidi has such a huge following. And I came to the conclusion that Ghamidi is a post-9/11 phenomenon. That it had to happen.
Interesting.
And what is that phenomenon? The phenomena is that from the religious leadership of Islam, somebody had to come and reconcile faith with the modern times. And I think this is exactly the role that Javed Ahmad Ghamidi is playing. And people who are torn between the modern world and their faith, they like Ghamdi's message because it is making Islam compatible with the modern world, unlike other traditional, ways of thinking about Islam, in which Islam gets stuck in the 7th century. And that is why Ghamidi is so huge, and especially among the people, especially in the West, the South Asian diaspora that speaks Urdu, he has a huge following. And Ghamidi, what he's saying is that, he's proving everything from Quran. So all the people who are against him, they never come up with something in substance about why we should not listen to him. They always call him, a fitna, and that he is, misleading Muslims, and he is pro-West and whatever. But whatever Ghamidi is saying, he is backing it up from Quran, and he is saying that in Quran, Allah is saying that Allah wants to make Islam or the religion easy for the Muslims, and that is what Ghamdi's message is, and it is being welcomed by a lot of people.
Do you compare him in some way to Mr. Tahirul Qadri, Allama Tahirul Qadri?
Is this question to me? Or
yeah. I will come to Riaz with the same question, but just please tell me in 30 seconds.
No, I think that this is a completely different phenomena than Tahirul Qadri, and I think that he is not from a particular, sect. He is trying to say that all these sects do not matter if we just, listen to Quran, follow that. So he's trying to appeal to a much wider spectrum of Muslims than other people have done before.
Yes.
I think one of the key characteristics I see in Ahmadi Sahib that I don't see in others is that he talks with reason. That he, instead of talking mumbo jumbo, about Islam, he talks about it in a very easy to understand manner. Something that an average Muslim who's not familiar with the tafsir of itself, of the detailed interpretation of the Quran, or the Hadith, which is several volumes of like Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim, he talks based on, okay, this is what the Quran says, and he basically sources everything from the Quran. Therefore, this is what it means for our times. So I think he makes it easy, he makes it relatable to the average person. And one of the things that's attracting people to him, I think, is that a lot of people are tired of the violence in the Islamic world today, of the suffering as a result of groups that claim to be, staunch Muslims that use the Quran and the Hadith to justify acts of violence, acts of terror. He is just the opposite of that. He uses his knowledge to explain why all of this is wrong and it's not acceptable in Islam. In fact, it's not just not acceptable, it is un-Islamic. It is not a part of Islam. What these people are saying is heresy. What he's saying is the true Islam.
It's why he doesn't have lectures in English also, so that the other people who don't understand Urdu, they understand it too.
I think it's probably he's more effective because we need a great change in Pakistan itself. I think one of the problems with people who speak English, particularly in Pakistan, is that they lose that credibility that his speaking in Urdu brings with it. He appeals to and he relates to the ordinary Pakistanis who understand Urdu and see somebody who's speaking in Urdu to them about their religion as more credible than somebody who comes to them speaking English.
Samantur, you want to add something?
No, I think that, when we listened to him on Saturday, he had very good answers for everything. The only thing is that what he's saying is that he wants religion be more like a private affair of people. He does not want to see religion being, pushed through the throats of people using the power of the state. And that is the message that is resonating with a lot of people.
Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us move to our next topic. Current visit of Secretary of State Tillerson, Saudi Arabia, then Qatar, then Iraq, then coming back to Afghanistan in the bunker, something, and then coming to Pakistan for 3-4 hours, and after that going to India and relax there. How you see all that?
Let me just tell you a little bit about the bunker thing.
Okay.
The Afghans release a picture of the meeting between Karzai, not Karzai, Ashraf Ghani and Tillerson. And then the Afghans released a different one. And the two pictures were different.
Different, yeah.
Now, one, the real picture, which the Americans released, had a military clock hanging in the back.
Yes,
indicating that it was a military time and military facility
the Zulu time
where they met.
That's correct. Yeah.
And the other picture with which the Afghans released, they photoshopped it out because they didn't want to acknowledge the fact that Ashraf Ghani was summoned to meet Tillerson at an American airbase.
Actually, they were the media and the government was giving this impression that they did not go to.
Well, actually, they met at Bagram.
That's correct. They say that in some basement. But when Secretary of Defense went there, then there was a rocket fire on the runway of the plane. So probably that is the reason they.
Yeah, but they still met at a base,
That's
that was the base.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
coming back to the visit through the whole area. Obviously, there are lots of issues in the Middle East. You know, you have the Gulf Cooperation Council states. You know, countries like UAE and Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, and Qatar at each other's throats. That's a problem, and United States has an interest on both of them. Qatar, because Qatar has a large American base located there, and Bahrain has a base, and then obviously Saudis are close allies of the United States, so that's an issue that they have to worry about. So you went there, and then the Afghan issue, obviously, you know,
that is the
uppermost in their mind right now. Now, the thing that they basically repeated the positions that the Americans have been repeating. That's what Secretary Tillerson repeated. That, you know, we have told Pakistan they have to do this, this, and this, or else.
Yeah.
You know, conditional, you know, relationship with Pakistan. But then the Pakistanis have reacted with anger, with outrage against all of that. And they have basically, most officials have actually reacted to it, saying, no, it's not we're not going to, you know, just do whatever you tell us to do. We will do what is in our best interest, which is fight terror, which we're already doing. In fact, they say that they have actually sacrificed more lives than anybody else in this fight against terror. And but the Prime Minister is taking a more conciliatory position. Shahid Khan Abbasi said that, yeah, we want to work with the United States to deal with terror. And this meeting that we had has helped the Americans appreciate our point of view. That's what he said after the meeting. So he's much more conciliatory compared to what Khwaja Asif and others.
Secretary of Defense also. He was very conciliatory.
Yeah. So that's the difference.
Yeah.
Now the other thing is that the Chinese have spoken out on this, and the Chinese said that Pakistan has made great sacrifices in fighting terror, and we should all acknowledge and appreciate that. So basically sending out a signal that they back Pakistan in this issue. The other thing that I'm seeing, which is very important to understand, is that the Chinese are pouring a lot of money into Pakistan right now. And there are also a lot of Chinese citizens coming to Pakistan. In fact, just last week they announced, a Chinese company announced a $500 million investment in Gwadar to build housing and to build office space and a financial banking center there. They're also building a large airport. So in fact, the guy who's investing that money, the company that is investing it, he said, his name is Ho Ye Chang of China Park Investment. We believe Gwadar is following in the footsteps of Shenzhen, which represented a historic population rise from a population of 30,000 in 1980 to 11 million people in 2017. Gwadar is poised to see massive population growth due to incoming industries, and we expect this to be one of the most strategic cities in South Asia. So all of this commitment is an indication that the Chinese are standing behind Pakistan. And there's a book that just came out recently by Andrew Small. It's called China-Pakistan Axis. And that book it says, there's one part of it where it says that an American delegation, high-level delegation, visited China to complain about Pakistan, and they kept talking to them about how bad Pakistan is, how they have been behaving badly with the Americans in Afghanistan and elsewhere. And after listening to them patiently, the Chinese official, also supposedly a very high-level official, told them, look, Pakistan is our Israel. You like it or not. So the message is that just like United States totally is committed to supporting Israel, even though Israel doesn't always listen to them, the Chinese are committed to totally supporting Pakistan, even though Pakistan doesn't always listen to them. Yeah. So it was a very interesting, remark, a quote that this book has.
Samantur, recently I had a chat with Ambassador Ashraf Jahangir Kazi, and he raised a very interesting point. He said that you have to keep in mind that US-Pakistan relations usually do not converge. It is just a transitional. Sometimes they need it, they take it. How you see that? Do you really agree with Ambassador Kazi or you don't? If you do, how you comment on that?
No, definitely I would agree with the ambassador. And you must understand that, unlike China, which is right next to Pakistan, U.S. is definitely far away from that region. And at this time, the U.S. only has one interest from Pakistan, which is that the U.S. wants to have stability in Afghanistan. So when the U.S. wants Pakistan to do more, the message is that do whatever you can so that there are no bomb blasts in Kabul. And then the idea behind this is that whatever happens and is claimed by the Taliban, any bomb explosion that happens in Kabul, that the planning and the personnel, everything happens within the border of Pakistan. And Pakistan has been saying, no, that is not the case. These people are in your land, which is Afghanistan, and they are doing everything from there. And hence, Tillerson's comment that Pakistan is a safe haven for a lot of terrorist groups. So this is what is happening. This is where we are stuck. Pakistan is saying we're already doing a lot, and the U.S. is saying not enough because still all this Taliban activity is happening in Afghanistan. So as many commentators have observed that the U.S. wants to have a graceful exit from Afghanistan and not finding a way to do that, they have to blame somebody, and it is easy to blame Pakistan. And Pakistan, you can see we're from Pakistan. We know that how abundant, how prevalent these guns and illegal ammunition is in Pakistan. And we are also aware of many jihadi organizations working in that country. So it's a complex situation. Pakistan is trying its best to do whatever it can to, curb this, but it is not happening, and it is not pleasing the U.S.
So, Riaz, Samantur says that U.S. would want to have a stability in Afghanistan. But don't you think if there is a stability in Afghanistan, then it would not justify U.S. to stay there? Because the way I see it, maybe U.S. doesn't want a stability in Afghanistan.
Yeah, let me make 3 points here. The first is that why does U.S. think that Pakistan alone is responsible for bringing stability to Afghanistan? Why don't they also look at who else is involved? Iran, India, Russia, all of them are deeply involved, and they're all supporting different groups.
Yeah.
India is supporting the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. It is now well known,
That's
TTP,
true.
And they're not helping
even their
stability.
media, somebody wrote a very big article on that.
They wrote that.
Yeah.
And then they attack Pakistan. Obviously, as long as they attack Pakistan, there's not going to be stability there. The second thing is that they know that the Iranians and the Russians are also helping the Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to acknowledge that, even though that is a fact. So unless they get the cooperation of all of the neighbors.
General Nicholson did acknowledge it, if you remember.
Yeah, but they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
See, they think that they can just pressure Pakistan into obeying the American commands, and that will bring stability. That the only problem is the Haqqani network, and there's no other problems there. If you control that, then everything is over. The second point is that, which Khwaja Asif made, is that when you have a massive explosion in Kabul, if you think the truck that goes there is prepared in Pakistan, there's about a 200 kilometer distance from the Pakistani border to Kabul. Why can't you stop them along that route, somewhere along the route? It's because you don't control all of Kabul, all of Afghanistan. You only control parts of Afghanistan. The third thing I'd like to mention, that's important is recently the American CIA chief claimed that this couple that was rescued by Pakistan.
The 5 years they were in Pakistan.
He said that they were there the entire 5 years they were in Pakistan. Now, the woman that was rescued, the American woman, Caitlin Coleman, said they're lying. That, in fact, she said that they spent time in both Pakistan and Afghanistan. In fact, the Taliban, she says, built a home for them in a town called Spingar inside Afghanistan. And they spent a considerable amount of time in that. So these people, they're actually lying. They keep claiming that it's all because of Pakistan. They don't take responsibility for what is happening in Afghanistan itself. So as long as they keep closing their eyes to the reality of what is happening and keep blaming Pakistan for all of their issues, there's going to be no stability, no peace there. That's what they have to begin with. Now, part of the problem is this big dysfunction in Washington itself. Only the military guys are talking about what needs to be done in Afghanistan. And they think that if you stop the Haqqanis, then it's all fit, that the problem is taken care of. What they are not doing is looking for a serious political solution. And even the office that Obama had created, the Office of Special Representative for Afghanistan and Pakistan, that has been disbanded. There's no diplomacy. A lot of the very critical positions in the State Department that deal with diplomacy in that region, they remain unfilled. So there's a lot of issues here. This is a very uncoordinated, haphazard kind of an effort to try and bring stability to Afghanistan. I don't think it's going to succeed.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, we will switch to our last topic. We have only 3 minutes left. We live in the post-truth era. And if you see it, the way we went to Iraq war, like on the basis of Iraq has the weapons of mass destruction, and we were being convinced by our administrations that they have a weapon of mass destruction, and look what we found out there, nothing. So of course we will never know. And this topic is, there are a lot of questions come that why Pakistan? I mean, if US just want to blame someone, it is very easy to blame Iran and Russia, and then nobody will tell them to go fight with them. But why Pakistan? Is it China there? It's because they don't want China to be there. Do we really want to come out from there? Do we really want the stability there in Afghanistan? Maybe we don't want a stability in Afghanistan so that we can stay there and keep our eyes on China. So these are the questions. I really wish I tried to contact with one ex-American diplomat, but unfortunately I am not able to do it. But over the time, hopefully he will join us sometime. So we will talk more about it. Riaz, Washington's dysfunctionalities. What is happening?
Yeah, I think
just the day we started.
Just look at the guy who's supposed to be playing a big role here. He is the chairman of Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Corker.
Bob Corker, that's
you know what he's been saying about Trump.
Yes.
He says that he's unstable, he's dangerous.
Yeah, he say very solid, strong words.
He could lead us to Third World War.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the view of your foreign relations chairman in the Senate. Do you expect others to believe that he's any better than that? I mean, the guy who's supposed to be working with him to solve these problems is giving up on him.
That's true.
So I think that's the kind of problem we're dealing with in the United States right now. There is total dysfunction. There's no strategy, no coordination. People like, Tillerson, I don't think he's going to be very effective. I mean, he goes to China to deal with the North Korean issue, and Trump sends out a tweet saying that
we will deal
you're just wasting your time.
Wasting your time.
Yeah.
That's true.
He's undercutting his own diplomats.
Yeah.
So I think under these circumstances, it is very difficult for the United States to be able to solve these difficult problems that the world faces right now.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you saw our show. So we will be meeting next week, same time, same channel. This is your host, Ms. Azam.